This is your Real Agriculture Update brought to you by the Mind Your Farm Business podcast. Stay on top of farm management issues year-round at mindyourfarmbusiness.com. Sean Haney here of RealAgriculture.com. With the COVID-19 pandemic, consumers have been forced to understand agri-food supply chains and how the food system really works. But what about their perceptions of agriculture? Bern Tobin of RealAgriculture.com talked to Peter Seaman of Grassroots Public Affairs about some recent research they did on this issue.
Now, last year, your first survey came out in advance of Canadians heading to the polls for a federal election. This year, you fielded the survey in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to talk more about COVID-19 in a second, but during that period of time over the last year, what have you seen in the ways of shifting attitudes from Canadians towards agriculture and food?
Good question. Undeniably, COVID-19, I believe, has made Canadians certainly more aware and more concerned about their food supply. We've been fortunate to live in a country that for a long time we haven't really had to worry about where we get our food. Maybe there's concerns on our ability to pay for food based on economics of the day and people's ability to be employed and have a job. But this is the first time in my lifetime I certainly can think of people going to the stores and seeing bare shelves. And it's made people think about it a little bit more. What the survey was intended to do was measure, again, their attitudes towards the industry, their level of support and awareness. And we certainly came away with some interesting findings.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those. I'm just going to give you a couple to noodle on here. 97% of Canadians trust the quality of food grown or produced domestically. 92% of Canadians endorse government support for agriculture and agri-food. Those are pretty big numbers.
Very, very strong. And consistent with last year, one of the questions we asked participants was to rank on a scale of sort of somewhat unconfident to very confident their attitudes towards food grown and processed in Canada versus the European Union, United States, Mexico, and China. And the numbers were high last year. They're higher again for food produced in Canada. So it demonstrates that Canadians would prefer to buy and consume food grown and processed here in Canada, and we need the politicians to start recognizing that the general public supports that. Furthermore, we asked them about where agriculture ranks with respect to issues around national security and just Canada as an economy and a country being able to look after its people. And it ranked a very strong second after healthcare, ahead of other leading industries like energy and mining and things like that. So people are generally very supportive of what Canadian farmers and food processors are doing.
Now, you've also seen, I'm looking at some more numbers here, 87% of Canadians believe that agriculture and agri-food is a leading economic driver. 86% believe that agriculture and agri-food plays a key role in national security and critical infrastructure. So you've got all these numbers. And I guess the question for you is, do we see these attitudes reflected in Canadian government policies and approach and support for the sector? And last week the government announced $252 million for COVID-19 support programs for the sector. The industry was greatly disappointed, asking for 2.6. What do we make of this?
Yeah, it is frustrating. You don't have to go far to talk to many people in the sector to hear the frustration they have, given the importance of the industry to everyday Canadians. And it's amazing to think that, depending on what statistic you look at, Canada is already amongst the top 5 exporters of food and food-related items around the world. And it's not because of government leadership on a federal level, regardless of as liberal or conservative governments over the last several decades. Agriculture has unfortunately been sort of pushed to the proverbial back burner on the stove. And we've been able to get to that awesome level of productivity because of the country we've been fortunate enough to have and the land and the fresh water and next door to a large consumer in the U.S. But we do have global competitors. And I've been saying repeatedly, just what could be the possibilities if we had a government in Ottawa specifically, in addition to provincial governments, that would, let's say, put their chips on agriculture and say, this is an industry that we believe can do much more for the benefit of all Canadians with the appropriate investment.
This has been your Real Agriculture Update. You can find out more about this issue or many others at realagriculture.com.